Hey, welcome to another session of Sincerely Stan, where we talk about things that are important to you. Um, on today's segment, I want to do something a little different. Um, Relational issues, as we all know, is just it's off the roof these days. People can't stay married. People can't stay in relationships for whatever the reason may be. It's just always something. And I find out that most times it's irreconcilable differences, things that we just, a gray area where we just can't figure it out. Um, so I wanted to do something on that's a compilation basically of conversations that I've had, endless conversations over the years concerning my own personal self and others. So I put something together. It's called 10 Common Problems People Have in a Relationship. A lot of this is stuff that we already know, guys, but it's always good to reiterate it. It's always good to hear it. It's always good to, let it marinate and see if, we can apply and see if it can make a difference in our lives. Every relationship experiences issues and pressures from one point to another. From arguments, sex, worries over money. As I said, over the years, I've had several conversations, so I've compiled this, and I want to go over it with you, and in hopes that we can make some headway here, and perhaps things can be a little smoother if we're having rough patches. The number one is arguments, and for arguments. For me, I think that there needs to be rules. No swearing, no cursing each other out. We have to stick to the point. Whatever the initial issue was that the one person brought up, we need to stick to that and not have an agenda that's outside of what the initial conversation was about in the first place. That causes us to lose focus and then to get off into things that really weren't what we weren't talking about initially, murking the waters, and when you get done talking or arguing or whatever the case may be, you'll find out you made no headway. So we don't want to do that. We need to have some rules. Make time to talk about issues before they happen. If you're noticing in your relationship, if you're paying attention to your relationship, we should come to notice things that as they begin to go awry. Not ignore them, not to make excuses for them, not to think they'll change without any maintenance, but we need to talk about things as we see them coming so that we don't get tied up in cocoons and can't get ourselves out. In that we have to ask ourselves, what are we really unhappy about? What is the problem here? If it's a singular issue, if you guys have a mutual issue, then individually you would do that. You do some soul searching and ask yourself, what is the problem? For people to have arguments over silly things like the dishwasher, those are usually indicative of a deeper issue. An argument over the dishwasher is basically, in my mind, a disagreement that just gone wrong. An argument, and I wrote this in my note, is a statement or a set of statements that you use to try to convince people that about your opinion, and trying to make your point. But it doesn't have to become toxic. When it becomes toxic, there's usually something else has been insufficiently addressed. It's usually something of a deeper issue. So we have to recognize these things and not ignore them. We have to go and ask ourselves, what are we really on about? Because a lot of times it's not just the immediate. So arguments have to be dealt with, and I'll add this, mutually. When you have a disagreement about something, there has to be a mutual want for things to be better. If you don't have that mutuality, then there's going to be a problem because one person is trying to pull a whole caboose, and that's in all likelihood probably not going to work. Um, the number two on the list is communication, and this is vitally important, and it has been in my life, and I'm still working on it. Some couples just have different communication styles. Some people are talkers, some people are non-talkers. Some people like to deal with things rather than having a conversation about them. You know, you guys used to communicate well, but now there's a lack of communication. You've stopped listening to each other. Instead, we try to do what I mentioned here earlier, is when someone speaks and you aren't really listening. You're not feeling them. You hear what they say, but when they're talking, you're formulating something in your mind, a response, rather than actually listening to what they're saying so that you can act on that. So I listen to people sometimes. I listen to mothers. Here's a good, when I was a soccer dad. And I would listen to women talk, they get together for the soccer games or what have you. Well, in my case, it was the football games. And I could hear them talking about their children or their husband or their home or whatever it is. And what I would always hear, not always, but a lot of times, is, well, hey, Johnny's doing such and such and such and such and such. And the other woman, rather than speaking on and asking any question further about what she said, to carry on the conversation, she'll tell her what Brian's doing, her son. Yeah, well, Brian's doing. You haven't listened. You haven't engaged this person, I think, wholeheartedly in situations like that. People are talking at each other rather than talking to each other. And this is what happens in relationships. We have to have heartfelt listening. This is very important. People cry about their relationships, but relationships require work. Number one is listen. Number two is communicate effectively. You have to listen to not only the words of the individual, your mate, but the heartbeat. What are they trying to tell you, whether it's in a disagreement or whatever the case may be? What are they saying to you? What point are they trying to make? You have to hear that. We have to hear that. Guys, we have to hear the ladies. Ladies, we have to hear the guys. And from our hearts. And want things to be better for their sake as well as just for yours. For the sake of the relationship as a whole, not just because of your own self-satisfaction, but for the good of everything that's concerned. So ineffective communication can sometimes become a battle. Have you ever had a conversation with somebody and you had good intentions, and I'm assuming they have too, but somehow or another, as you get in and somebody strikes a chord, it becomes a battle rather than a mutuality among two people that care for each other, that want to maintenance the relationship and make some positive progress. So that's not what a conversation with your mate is supposed to be. It's not supposed to be a battle. It's not supposed to be competitive. It's supposed to be two people coming together, one heart, that in fact want to have some resolution and make some headway, some positive headway in their relationship. So arguments, communication, problems, remember, and relationships, key problems. And for me, for the number three is growing apart. It's normal that people change over time. That's just a given. Everybody does that. Some couples change together. Other people change individually at various amounts at various times throughout the relationship. For us, it's important individually to think about how we can support that person's change and have a successful relationship in the midst of the change, rather than looking at the change as something negative. Then look at the change as something good. If that's in fact what it is, embrace it, and you guys make an effort to grow and mature together. Not necessarily at the same time, not necessarily in the same way, but grow together. So change is not a bad thing. As a matter of fact, I think change is good. I think that for people who, like they say in the movie, like the movie's title, Live and Die in LA, to do the same thing year after year, whatever it may be, to me is just not the spice of life. We need to change. We need to grow. We need to develop in every area of our lives, physically, emotionally, mentally, intellectually, in every way. So if you're growing apart, maybe it's just a matter of that there's some change due to the circumstances of you guys being together, or maybe it's just the person has changed biologically. You know what I'm saying? Intellectually, emotionally. Embrace that, you guys, and talk about it openly and honestly and vulnerably. Be vulnerable, and talk with each other and let you know each other what you're going through, and support one another. Um, it's important for us to think that we can have a successful relationship with this new person. The person might be being brand new. You know the expression about being brand new? Well, maybe the person's being brand new in a good way, in a way that, isn't for the benefit of them as an individual, is for the benefit of you as a couple, and for the benefit of the relationship as a whole. So, we should embrace that rather than grieving over the person that this person used to be. Unless, of course, this person's morphed into some kind of monster, then that's a horse of a different color. But we're assuming that this growing apart has something that has been because of individual growth, whether negatively or positively. But we need to embrace it, and if it's something that's gone awry in that growth process, to deal with it. It has a potential growth of being very exciting. Where you used to be a couch potato, now you're working out. Now you guys are hiking trails. Now you guys are bike riding. Now you guys are taking weekend, getaways. Maybe the person's changed that way. They don't want to do that anymore. Embrace that. Embrace that. Never mind what about what we used to do. Think and consider about doing something different. So I think that that would truly benefit this growth thing. If you guys talk to each other and feel like you really want different things as individuals, you have to care enough about one another to keep connected. If what happens, it's okay in these times of disconnect, because people grow apart. It's okay to experience that, but it's important to have enough good memories. It's important enough to have some kind of connectivity, good thoughts, good feelings about someone to hold on until there's a turnaround. See, what I'm trying to describe here is matters of the heart. Getting along are matters of the heart. And if for your heart, we need to review our hearts in the midst of conflict in our relationships. If we are honest and open enough and courageous enough to do that, and we test our motives about things, if we really do it, we'll find out a lot of times we're not even coming from a good place, but we want good results. We want good results from our mate. We want good results in the relationship, but we're not giving it our best. So we have to maintain that connectivity from the heart, even though there may be a drift. And if the relationship is salvageable, then reflect on the love that you once had. It wasn't always bad. There was something I would want to believe along the way in the relationship that you can embrace and hold on to. That's what you would have to do if someone got sick. You guys get married, one of you gets sick, and you have to care for them for a long period of time. Well, they're not going to look the same way they used to. They're not going to talk the other way they used to. Their swag is not going to be the same. They're not going to dress the same way, but it's the same person. So we would have to remember the good times to help us along the way. And that's what we need to do in a relationship anyway. If there's a drift, don't harp on that as a negative, but yet still embrace it and have and be of good heart so that you can try to move forward in it rather than, fight against it. I have here for number 4 is infidelity. We all know what infidelity is, cheating on someone. But relationships can be built after affairs. It's going to take some honesty and a willingness to allow wounds to heal, man. It's not easy when, someone's cheated on you. And then some people put a big premium on the fact that someone gave themselves away to them physically. And I'm not trying to undermine it or speak light of it, so nobody jump on me. I'm just saying there's some people place a super high premium on that. And if you cheat on them, that's it. There's some people who are unforgiving in that way. So if there's some infidelity and in a relationship, then there needs to be some honesty and a willingness to try to heal the wounds mutually. mutually. Affairs don't usually just happen out of the clear blue sky. So it's worth spending time to learn some lessons through that time and find out perhaps why that would have happened, why your mate strayed away, and correct it. Maybe they feel like you're not beautiful like you used to be. There's my 15-minute timer, and I'm way over. Maybe you don't look the way you used to. And who's going to? You guys got together when you're 30 and now you're 60. Go figure. Maybe you don't walk the way you used to. Maybe, whatever the case may be, you've gained some weight. Whatever the case may be, you've had some children now, and, guys, the baby weight comes on. Whatever it is, infidelity, eye towards someone else, doesn't generally just happen automatically. It's usually a series of something that has occurred. Now, am I justifying it because there's a series of something to go out and cheat on your mate? No. So nobody come to me and tell me that I'm condoning that, because I'm not. What I am saying is that it usually starts from something. And so we need to really consider what caused it to happen in the first place. And sometimes these conversations are hard. Sometimes it's just something you can't broach alone. You have to bring in a third party or some kind of mediator or counselor or something to help you to get through this situation. So when there's infidelity, I think, again, you have to think back over the times when they were good and reflect on that and the good things that you guys have experienced in the relationship while you're trying to work on what happened, and so that you can prevent that from happening again. I do know the people that have personally that have experienced infidelity, and they've overcome it. As a matter of fact, it caused them to get stronger. So all is not necessarily lost. Don't get me wrong, it's a terrible thing, but not all is not necessarily lost. Sometime you can turn that negative into a positive. Number 5 I have on my list is traumas. When things happen in people's lives, life events and external pressures have their impact on your relationship. Somebody loses a job, or somebody gets sick, or somebody's family member gets sick and you have to take them in. Some people cope with this just by pulling together and getting even stronger. But it's common to find that, unfortunately, that there's a lot of people that they just succumb to the pressures of this, and that's not what we should be doing. If you are stressing some hardship in terms of dealing with something like this, it's best not to clam up and try to battle it alone. Let your partner know how you're feeling. You have to be vulnerable and let them know how you're feeling. Let some dear friends or some family members know, so that you can have a support group and deal with this in that way. Your mate may not wonder. You're up at night. You've changed your habits. You're up at night. And they wonder, why are you doing that? They don't know what you're going through. And if they don't know what you're going through, and our personalities change, and then your mate asks you what's wrong, and you say nothing, and people are notorious for that. But there is something. That's hard to deal with, because you've changed. They know you well enough to know that you've changed in these circumstances or at this period in your life. But when they ask you what's wrong, you say nothing. You can't work with that, and it's one of the most frustrating things in the world, and I think we've all done it and probably experienced it as well. So try to take these kind of stressors as, again, an opportunity for you guys to get closer. Team us. You know what I'm saying? Me and you against the world. This is an opportunity for you guys to, two are better than one, and get to it. I know it's not the best scenario, but we're just talking about what the best approach in a bad situation. So remember, don't let it bring you apart, but pull together. This is if you care anything for each other, and let that maybe be indicative of how much do you really care for a person. If you're not really to stick with them through the times when they need you the most, remember, a friend in need is a friend indeed. And in a relationship, we should be friends first and foremost. And so that friend needs you, and if you're not willing to be there, that's, in my mind, a great indicator of where we stand. So Another one, number 6, I have is appreciation, and I'm way over, guys. Just hang in there with me for a minute. This is going to be a little long, but if you hang in and just listen to what I'm saying and think about it and do your own research and look at your own relationship, it just may benefit you. You know, I'm talking to myself too. I'm talking to me as well. So I can't preach to the choir. I have to, in fact, take note to some of the things that I'm mentioning to you and apply them in my own personal life. I'm not Superman. My number 6 on the is appreciation. Everybody wants appreciation. I know I do. You know, they want to hear good job, you know, go get him, Tiger, you know, you got this and all of that. And in our relationships, we can end up feeling underappreciated or not appreciated at all and neglected when one partner isn't giving us enough time. Do you know how many times I hear that from women? I mean, they put us in the bag now. You know, I want you to go out there and get the bag, you know, get the dough. But then if you're in a situation where it requires you to be concentrating on what you're doing for long periods of times and perhaps taking away from a little quality time between you and your partner, then there's a problem because you're not around enough. So in a case like that, a guy would want some appreciation. I'm trying to do all I can so that we can be financially, you know, afloat, and you know, and you're complaining about you're not getting enough time. Well, that's still a viable, even though you're doing that, it's still a viable, you know, concern on the other person's part, whether it's the male or the female that has this, is feeling abandoned and not, or feeling underappreciated. But whomever it is, just remember that we have to prioritize. And you know, even though our life source, I mean, our livelihood comes from our work, you know, our life source, you know, is our life source is our relationship. So priorities, because everybody wants to feel appreciated, and one of the quickest ways for a guy or a girl to not feel appreciated is for the other person not to give them any kind of attention, give them any kind of accolades, affirmations. Those are all love languages, and they're very important. Your mate needs to feel appreciated, even in the small things. You know, they do something and they did a good job. Good job. You know what I mean? You know, you're so smart. I appreciate you, baby. Things like that go a long way. Guys, you know what I'm talking about. Discuss these things. You know, I'm feeling underappreciated. Don't clam up. This leads to a buildup, like a pipe, like an aneurysm. You know, an aneurysm, that's only buildup to where it bursts. Well, that's what happens. Your relationship has an aneurysm. Boom, it bursts because we haven't been maintaining the relationship properly. We have to do all of the things that I just got through mentioning. Take note of things as they occur. Don't wait till they get built up. You know, we have to have effective communication. We can't drift. When people start growing, we have to embrace the growing, the new person, and attempt to grow with them. All of these things, be appreciative of each other. This is not just a one-way thing. If you guys would implement this, if I would implement this, we would find that these things really will. It's like a flower. A person's like a flower. And when you give them that appreciation and affirmation and so forth, right here, the hand, you know, the flower opens up and the person blossoms. And that's what you want. You want your person to blossom. Sometimes these matters of appreciation are just matter of communication, you know, is what I'm saying. For example, your partner values what you do for them, but doesn't say it. Say it. And help yourselves feel appreciated by noticing and telling each other, you know. So you guys build each other up is what I'm trying to say. Build each other up, and you'll find that you'll get a lot more from that person and out of that person in the relationship. Folks, I'm telling you, effective communication goes a long way. Number 7 on the list is sex, S-E-X. Granted, some sexual issues need, a specialist, but in most cases, it's just simply a buildup of lack of desire for whatever the reason may be. Sometimes these conversations about how much sex you want to have, believe it or not, one wants to have sex more than another, what type of sex you want to have, how you want to play it out. These things can become problematic because a person can feel bored or feel, things are mundane. It's it's worth considering how we communicate these things to our partner, because when you tell somebody something about sex and you're actually saying that, hey, I'm unfulfilled, or I would like to try something else, the person is automatically going to think, what, I'm not doing my job? A guy, I'm not handling my business? A woman, I'm not taking care of them? That's not necessarily the case. We're just talking about, remember, the transition, the changing person, the evolving person. Maybe they started evolving and they want sex more, while the other person is evolved, especially a woman after having children may want sex less. So one of you can be sick and it'd be long periods of time and things like that. So sex is very important. To me, it's not the whole cake, but it's certainly good frosting. So it's worth considering how we communicate about these things. We have to be sensitive, and we have to know that the other person is probably going to be a little sensitive, and we want them to talk openly, so we have to come to them in a way that makes them blossom. Remember the flower we just talked about? Affirm them, let them know all the things that are going right, and then when you tell them, be inclusive. We, not you, we. And that'll work, and that's something I actually need to work on myself. It has to be we. Even though I know this out, when I'm talking to someone, I'll mention something about you, but you're in a relationship, it needs to be we. We have a problem. Because when you're inclusive like that, your person feels safe. So yes, Dan, I'm gonna practice that myself, to include myself when I'm talking to people in relations, anybody, to make sure that I'm not pointing fingers and they can feel safe talking to me. Sex, in large part, whether we want to admit it or not, is considered taboo. And that's not correct. God created sex. He wanted us to procreate, and he made it good. It serves a purpose. There's nothing taboo about it. You don't even have to feel that way. So in a relationship, if you have a relationship with someone and one of you's a little shy about it, then the other one needs to build them up and help them to realize that sex is not a bad word. It's a good thing. It just needs to be administered properly with the right person at the right time in the right way, where you guys can mutually benefit from it. Boom, there it is. It's not rocket science. But you do have to ask yourself, I would think, whether the sexual issue is a symptom of other difficulties in your relationship, or are you guys just basically growing apart? Or has one of the individuals having a medical condition that's considering all this? So you have to ask yourself, what is the issue? And when you address whatever the issue is, to act on it. Together, mutually, remember, from the same heart, in an effort to want the relationship to work. If this is the case, if this is not the case, then this is another show altogether. We're talking about people that these 10 problems happen in their lives and they want to actually, in fact, make it work. So, number 8 on the list, there's 10. Money. I can hear in my mind, the OJs, money, 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 money. Yeah, the almighty dollar. Financial pressures, it can be an issue, I know, but it doesn't have to be a riff. Remember, because we have to apply everything that I just got through talking about. We have to have the heart, like I just got through mentioning. If there's a financial problem, then you guys have to be of one heart and one mind. It's a questionnaire, relational questionnaire assessment. They found that 1 in 10 people argue about money or debt or finances at least once every couple of weeks. Wow. They said 1 in 10 people. So for every 1,000 people, it's 100. Wow. Argue about money at least every 2 weeks. In my mind, there's no right or wrong attitude toward money. Some people are just more naturally savers or more naturally spenders. If you and your partner have different attitudes about money, or how it should be spent or how it should be saved, that can be a source of tension between you. But like anything else, you shouldn't allow it to be a riff. I think that what we need to do is talk about, our finances and what our goals are and how do we financially plan to achieve them. And just have that mutual conversation. It doesn't need to be a disagreement. Just know that you guys are different, whether it's a male or female, whether it's a parent or a child, husband and wife, boyfriend and girlfriend, whatever the relationship may be. Just know that you are entitled to have different opinions about how you feel money should be spent. Just because the person is a spender doesn't necessarily make them an ogre. It just means that they may need to learn to save more. So being a good example and talking about finances, not putting each other down, but talking about finances and find some kind of mutual ground to how you want to spend or save, that'll save you guys a whole lot of problems. If you do these things from the onset, or if you haven't done it from the onset of the relationship, as you see that things are not going like you think they should be, because just because you think things should be going a certain way doesn't necessarily mean they actually should be. It just you thought that. So in having a conversation with your partner, you guys can determine if in fact what you're proposing is correct, and B, if it is, and you guys agree that you're going to move forward, to how are you going to move forward on it. You always need a plan of how we're going to move forward, not just that we're going to do something, but how are we going to get there? What steps are we going to take in order to get to the financial freedom or the financial stability we want? How are we going to overcome the infidelity? How are we going to overcome the drifting? How are we going to overcome the lack of communication? There always needs to be, you guys always need to be, always need to be not just citing the problem, but guys coming up with a solution, a mutual solution that you both agree with and you both can sustain. And remember, always from the right heart. And I think you can move forward and get past even issues that are even as sensitive as money. So they always talk about how there's old saying that if you want to know, who a man is, look at his checkbook. So you want to see who he's writing those checks to, because that'll show what's important to him. So just do a cash check, and you guys just get it together. Number 9 on my list of the 10 things is boredom. Most long-term relationships at some point or another have experienced this boredom. I'm tired of you. It happens to everyone. Especially if there's some problems in the relationship and you're really not feeling the person anyway, and then you've got the drift and all of the other stuff, the lack of communication, all these other ailments going on in a relationship. Boredom, because you're going to get tired. So everybody goes through that. This feeling of, maybe I don't feel in love with you, but I love you. I don't have that. That means I don't have that passionate that I used to have. It doesn't mean I don't love you. It doesn't mean I'm not there for you. It just means that I'm not hot and heavy for you, because for whatever the reasons may be, and it could be any one of the ones that we've already cited. So this boredom equals companionship. You want to overcome boredom with companionship. You want to overcome boredom with compatibility. You want to overcome boredom, have some mutually shared history together. These things are things that you guys can value in your relationship. You can value those things, the companionship that you once had, the compatibility that you may once had, the shared history which you guys have gone through, the good, bad, and the ugly. These are all things that can overcome boredom, because there was a time when you were in love with this person. There was a time when things were different, if they were in fact different. And then remember those times. You guys remember when we used to, remember when we used to laugh at, remember when we went such a place. These things, bring out the pictures, and recap some of those times and talk about them and laugh about them. These are things that will overcome boredom, because they'll help rekindle the relationship. If you guys are bored and truly care and love each other, then the relationship is not something that happened overnight. It's become a culmination of, in large part, a great many of the things that we just got through talking about. Don't let it happen. Um, um, if you're bored and you want to create, I'm trying to, I have a note here, but I'm trying to think about how I want to articulate this. If you're really bored, you got to think about what needs to happen. Okay, so we're bored. You admit we're bored? Okay, I admit we're bored. Well, what needs to happen? That means that you guys need to talk about your different values. You might talk about your different growth spurts. All of this may come out where one of you now is more active, than wants to be more active than the other. So it will be a growth spurt. You need to talk about all of these things that we just got through mentioning, because they will help you to determine why you're bored. You have to really think about, in your relationships, you have to maintenance it and think about, why am I bored with somebody that I used to get along with? Why am I bored with someone that I used to love? Why is the flame kind of going out in a relationship? There's always a why. And if you guys talk together of one heart, meaning you really want to prosper in your relationship, find out what the problem is, identify it as the enemy, and tackle it. So if you're bored, it's not the end of the world. You're a rotten person because I'm bored with you. Think about, how did this transition to this point in the first place, and deal with it. This is the key to any relationship, to carefully review your relationships together and individually. We have to review ourselves. We can't always look to the other person as the fault of what's going on in a relationship, because there's never one person that's always at fault. Even if one person is the perpetrator, the initiator of a fault, how you respond to it, and if it's incorrect, makes you as fault or me as much as fault as the other person. So very seldom is it ever one person. So when I hear people say he, or she, a red flag automatically goes up, because I don't hear any inclusiveness, but I know that the two of you were together throughout this stuff. So talk to your partner about your boredom. Children. Children is number 10 on my list, and I saved that for number 10 because it's a sensitive issue. It's easy for parents to become polarized in our parenting. A lot of times what happens, and this actually happened to me with my youngest child, is you become the good cop, bad cop. And, one will be the one that's really permissive and the cool one, and the other one will be more of the disciplinarian, and the child will run and alternate between the two if they know that there's a rift between you guys and you're not on one accord, because of the fact that you're playing the good cop, bad cop. Co-parenting always doesn't have to feel cooperative, because people have different styles. But there has to be a set of rules, of guidelines. Like when you bowl, the rules to bowling for an inexperienced bowler is, if you put up the guardrails, no matter how bad you bowl, you won't throw a gutter ball. Well, if the guardrails are the rules. Well, in a relationship, the rules are the guardrails, which are the boundaries that you don't step outside in your parenting. You have to be on one accord, because your kids, trust me, I've been through this, they quickly smell a rat. And then they harp on that, and they create, some knowingly, some unknowingly, depends on how old they are and how much they've experienced, they learn to become manipulative. So you don't want that to happen. So co-parenting is always hard. There has to be ground rules, mutual ground rules. And when a child sees that you guys are staying on one accord, I don't care if you personally can't stand each other, but where it comes to parenting a child and establishing the rules and the values and the disciplines for that child that they will live by, that's raising them. And you guys need to be on one accord. There needs to be some boundaries that you've literally talked about or wrote down, or whatever the case may be. And that child needs to know that you're on the one accord regarding their raising, and then you'll have less problems, I assure you. There's a lot of blended families. I've experienced this myself as well, where one parent feels like, the other parent is favoring their own particular child. This is a tough assignment. Or where you have children's intervention when they get to be know that they can manipulate a situation, and they want to determine whether this is the right person for you or not. There's all kinds of scenarios where children are involved. But what I would ask people to do is make sure that you guys place your relationship. Listen to me carefully. This is primarily for married couples. The relationship has to be the most significant of any relationship between a husband and wife. The love for you guys has to be a mutual love, and it has to be a strong love, and it has to be a love that's distinct from the love for the children. Because if you love one another, there's plenty of love that will spill over onto the children, and they'll get all the love that they need from both of you. So in bringing together blended families, again, you have to be of one heart. You actually have to love this person so much to where your feelings for them spills down to their children, which are not biologically yours, and you're willing to help them as you want them to help you in the raising of your children. Now, for the women, the guys get a little cheated sometimes because the women are usually with the mom. So you'll be with a woman and her children are there, and maybe you only have visitation rights every 2 weeks or once a month or however it may be. That can cause a problem because her kids will feel a little bit more entitled because they're amongst you guys all the time. Her kids might be a little on the lookout for any negativity or any change in your personality when your children come around, and she may even look for that. Your kids may look for that when they come over there. They'll be on the defensive because they feel like they're in foreign territory because they're not there all the time. So children can definitely be a contention between you. Just like the rest of this, don't let it be. It doesn't have to be a rift. The most important thing is in life is to put God first, and all that you know about him and all that you don't know, try to seek, ask, knock, so that these things can become aware to you, so that you can become a better person so that for yourself, so that you can become a better person for someone else. That was good. That was good. You can use my material, but I thought that was pretty good. So anyway, that's all I got. Relationships are hard work. You have to go into them with your eyes wide open, not negatively, but as things are going good, your eyes are wide open so that they stay good. If things are negative at some point, then you look at them and find out the root cause and deal with it. And then I think that'll make just a better way for you and a more precious life. To my friends, family, I love you, and God does too. Until the next time, peace.